Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, it's been a weird day, to say the least. We've been waiting and waiting for news to break, and then news broke, probably the first significant news. I mean, I guess Rich Bisaccia stepping down was significant on the salary cap front. I mean, McKinney it's not insignificant. And so Rashawn Gary, we get some news. I don't know if you listened or if you're up on things. I released a breaking news podcast, but essentially the detail was kind of that he got released. That wasn't really what was said in his statement, but he said goodbye to everybody. Everybody assumed that meant he was released and not traded, although I tried to leave that open because I figure, pretty prominent people are saying it, so it must be confirmed by them. Very shortly thereafter, all the prominent people come out and say, actually, nope, he was never released, and I don't know what you're talking about, and we don't know what's going on. He might get traded still. Everything's whatever. It's like, wait a minute, what? Rashawn Gary takes this thing. So I don't think I know what's going on, but I feel like I have a decent idea what's going to happen. Anyways, for those that are not exactly sure what the heck I'm talking about or whatever, let me give you a timeline, at least up to the point of where I am. First of all, in the early afternoon hours, Rashawn Gary drops this Instagram thing, this whole goodbye deal. I read it already. I'll read it again. When I got the call in 2019, it was one of the greatest moments of my life, and it always will be. The opportunity to represent Green Bay and the Packer Nation across the country and around the world is something I will never forget. Like all chapters in life, this one has come to an end. I want to thank everyone who supported me and my family throughout the years. The love, the energy, and the memories mean more than words can explain. On to my next stop. Nowhere near done yet. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, there's a whole lot of Gary's gone. Gary says goodbye. All that different stuff. And I was reading it as it was coming out. And I was like, I don't want to jump the gun here, but you started seeing actual Packers beat writers and national beat writers saying he was being released. So it's not a trade. And usually trades are not really announced this way, but it wasn't a trade. It wasn't anything. It was a release. Okay, so that's what it is. Then Gary deletes the graphic off of his Instagram account. Then around 2 to 3 o'clock, we start getting stuff from like Rob Domofsky or whatever saying, Gary has not been told he will be released or traded. In fact, his Instagram account was hacked, per the source. The Packers actually reached out to local media like Fox 11 to tell them that Gary has not been cut or informed of any moves, and he is still on the roster. The password was reportedly changed and control regained quickly. So I don't think anyone is really believing the hacking story. I don't know that that's ever been true. I mean, aside from some really blatant, obvious things where, people are just giving complete opposite views, If Rashawn Gary just went on social media and was like, Packers suck, Bears are the best, blah. Okay, you got hacked. Got it. And I'll leave open the possibility that it could be true, but in the realm of what is most likely, that ain't it. Now, there's a realm of, a range, I guess you could say, of things that kind of make sense to me. My initial thought was that, Rashawn Gary put it out there, maybe didn't understand that he wasn't supposed to do that. Probably his agent told him, it's not going to work out or something. And so they put that thing out there without the proper communication that the Packers were not ready to do that yet. And very quickly, the word got back to them. You need to take that down immediately. Why would that happen? Well, the Packers are still trying to probably trade Rashawn Gary. And that obviously is going to hurt any kind of leverage that you have if you're the Green Bay Packers. Heard a lot of people say that Rashawn Gary's mom runs that account. That feels somewhat irrelevant to me because the message must have got to whoever's running it, which means it would have come from who? It would have come from Rashawn. The agent's not going to go to his mom. The team is not going to go to his mom. So whether Rashawn put it up himself or he went to his media manager or he went to his mom and gave them the message, either way, it's kind of the same story and it doesn't really matter. But it just sounds like Rashawn Gary jumped the gun on saying goodbye. And, who knows? Maybe he had it created and put it up somewhere and posted it on an accident or something. I don't know. It was up probably too long for that. Usually it's kind of as soon as you do it, it's, oh, shoot. And, maybe somebody catches it. But I don't know. There's a range of possibilities here. The hacking thing is possible, but again, I would put that pretty low on the list of possibilities. Now, the Packers again have come out sternly and said, no, all options are on the table. He is still on the team. Where is that tweet here? The transaction list came out with all the different transactions. Rashawn Gary is not on it, so nothing has happened there. At the end of the day, though, I would assume that this is much ado about nothing. It's possible he ends up staying and he actually was hacked and they worked something out. It's possible. That's a long shot. It's possible that they do end up securing a trade. They're obviously still trying. I'm sure that means that, some people have still willing to pick up their phones on that issue. More than likely, he's going to be released. He was always going to be released. And not a lot is going to change there. Now, I will say I'm seeing nothing but overpays everywhere out there. We'll get to some Chicago Bears news. We already talked about the last bit of Chicago Bears news where I felt like they got more for DJ Moore than I would have expected. And then they just went out and paid probably more than I would have expected for somebody. So, if teams are that desperate and they're throwing some stuff around, who knows? Maybe the Packers take on a bunch of that contract and try to offer him up for as cheap as possible. And, I don't know. But there's quite a few hurdles to get over there. So we'll kind of call that news. But also, I guess there wasn't any news. This is, when I said if you're new to the offseason, it's fun, it's crazy, it's out of control. This is pretty much peak offseason. That isn't to say the best of the offseason. It just means it's peak off-season. One graphic pops up, which, by the way, we almost did this like yesterday, 2 days ago, when Rashawn Gary posted an image of his sweatshirt on the ground. But he posts a goodbye thing, 20 minutes of absolute pandemonium, claims of hacking, and now there's fights all over about what this means and what's going to happen and all this stuff, and crazy conspiracy theories being leveled all over the place. It is the best of NFL offseason meets social media. And I freaking love it. All right, anyways, let's back up a little bit. Lots and lots to get through here. Again, the NFL has been kind of ablaze. I want to go over some of the things that may have some level of impact as far as we are concerned. First of all, Tyler Biadasz is already off the market. This may have ended up being a very, very good thing for us, because the Bears certainly were trying to move fast in the center position, and we'll get to it, but they ended up making a center move after the Tyler Biadasz. I'll cut out the sneeze. After the Tyler Biadasz signing. He did sign with the Chargers. It was, I believe, a 3-year, $30 million, if I can pull this up here. Yes. A week after being released by the Commanders, Biadasz now lands with the Chargers, who are desperately hoping to upgrade their offensive line this offseason. Chargers are in a bad way. A lot of teams are, but they are really bad with their, especially interior. The 6-year vet also had interest from the Bears, but the Chargers clearly offered the more exciting deal to bring in the former Pro Bowler. Biadasz has played in 31 of a possible 34 games since 2024, earned a PFF grade of 70.7, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you to the LA Chargers for keeping him out of Chicago. That was a large concern of mine, the fact that the Bears are hunting. I don't like when they're hunting. I don't like when any of the NFC North teams are hunting around. I'm just nervous they're going to get this big freaking home run thing that's going to be terrible. And that very well still may happen. You can feel the Bears just ready to pounce. I don't know if you feel it, but I feel it. You know, the Lions feel like they're waiting, they're treading water. The Vikings are just all in on trying to find some garbage quarterback to come in and fix everything. They don't even have a GM, so I don't think they're a freaking chicken walking around with their head cut off. The Bears, though, they're very confident. They're ready. This is our year. We're going in. We're going big. We're going hard. And they tried immediately. You see, we talked about it yesterday. Tyler Biadasz gets cut. That same day, there's a report that he's going to Chicago to speak with the Bears. Fortunately, the Chargers were more desperate and decided to pounce. So I'll say again, thank you to the Chargers for that. It does suck for us a little bit, but at the same time, it wasn't going to be us. It was going to be Chicago. And if it's them or nobody, then obviously nobody is the answer. And as I've said, I feel pretty good about the center class right now. There's a decent pile of guys. And we're not talking first or even necessarily second round. There's some second round, but I mean, I guess we're late second round. So anywhere from there through like the fourth round and even possibly beyond that, I think the Jones guy is like in the fifth round now conversation. There's guys that I really like at center. And again, not a lot of teams are hunting for center, especially now that, as we'll talk about, Chicago and now the Chargers have found somebody to come in and play center. Not to say that they won't still draft somebody, but it is much lower on their priority list. Relatively low news here, but Kayvon Thibodeau, ESPN's Jordan Renan reports multiple league sources expect edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau to eventually be moved. Teams have believed Thibodeau has been available for a while, but this is the first report we've seen noting that he's expected to be moved. Thibodeau is entering his fifth-year option season, and moving him would free up $15 million in cap space for the Giants. A Thibodeau trade would perhaps portend a more active offseason than expected for John Harbaugh's crew. Now, as far as this is concerned, just so we can talk about it, Kayvon Thibodeau was the number 5 overall selection out of Oregon back in 2022. He has not lived up to what was expected of him. He has almost never cracked even 10% from a pressure standpoint. In 2024, he had 38 pressures on 360 attempts, so just barely above 10%. As far as his sacks are concerned, he cracked 10 sacks once. In 2023, he had 13 sacks, which is decent. But again, his pressure numbers were horrific. 43 pressures on 520 attempts and a 63 pass rush grade. So the sacks were kind of fluky. He's never really graded out very high as a pass rusher outside of that 2024 season where he had those decent pressure rate. The bigger issue, though, is he has had tons of injuries. He hasn't really played a full season since 2023, but you can go all the way back to Oregon. He was in a boot in 2021 from a left ankle sprain, missed several games. Then when he came to the NFL, his rookie season, MCL sprain, grade 2, knocked him out for the preseason as well as the first two games of the regular season. 2023 gets a grade 1 concussion, week 10 versus the Cowboys. And then 2024 and 25 are when he had his biggest injuries. 2024, wrist injury requiring surgery, placed on IR October 12th, later activated November 23rd. For reference, I mean, it dropped him from 981 snaps to 593. So, 2/3 of a season he played. And then in 2025, he didn't even crack 500 snaps. He had a shoulder injury, week 10 against the Bears, missed 4 straight games with a shoulder issue, working only on the side at practice. Then they placed him on season-ending IR December 19th and 20th. He finished the season 10 games played before he was shut down. So there's 2 reasons why this is relevant. Number 1 is if, let's say, we move on from Rashawn Gary And maybe we're a little bit unsure about Lucas Van Ness, especially if we're going to be doing a little bit more of a 3-4-ish kind of a system where, whether that's the reason he started playing better is because we moved to a more 4-3 defense or not. I don't know. Could the Packers invest in a guy like this, depending on his price? Because remember, the Packers are kind of iffy with certain guys, but I think you could argue that they're maybe a little bit more aggressive for other guys. Number one, premium position. Number two, he's a number 5 overall selection and a freak athlete. He is 25 years old. The injuries are concerning, but you bring in Kayvon Thibodeau to be the number 2-ish pass rusher with Micah Parsons on the other side and Lucas Van Ness to kind of spell you at times, along with whoever else we end up having playing. I wouldn't say it's impossible. The other thing worth bringing up is literally the entire NFC North is in play here. The Lions have been talking about getting somebody on the opposite side of, what's-his-name, forever, and they usually just bring in some old cast-off guys. This would be at least a younger investment, a more long-term investment. I don't know why I can't get Trey Hendrickson out of my head. That's not Trey Hendrickson. You know who I'm talking about. The Bears are very interested in anybody along the defensive line, but edge rusher is going to be a immediate need. And the Vikings are doing what they always do, which is everybody's old. Let's get them out of here. Let's bring in a whole new batch of free agents. Now, this might be a little young for the Vikings. They don't usually like him at 25. They're interested in more like 28 to 32 aged guys. But, Kwesi's gone. Maybe they're going to turn over a new leaf here. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I mean, remember, they're talking about he could be moved, which, in addition, we're probably talking about draft compensation unless they end up cutting him. But I would doubt it. I would assume, especially being on his 5th-year option, he's not going to be massively expensive. So I would guess there would be a trade involved, but I don't know. All right, let's take a break. We got a bunch more of these to go through, as well as a good amount of NFC North and maybe Packers. We'll see. Not a ton outside of the Rashawn Gary thing that has happened. We'll be right back. Somebody else that's kind of interesting, but probably is nothing. The Dolphins have released fullback Alec Ingold. He was the highest paid fullback in the league, probably because he's one of the only fullbacks in the league at the time of his release, and will now be looking for a new home. The 29-year-old vet has spent the last 4 seasons with the Dolphins, was named the Pro Bowl in 2023. His release will clear just over $3 million in cap space for the Dolphins, who are attempting to get under the salary cap before the start of the season. It's always fun to think of a fullback. The idea that maybe Matt wants to kind of bring that back, revive that fullback role. I think most people would probably immediately look at this and say, well, the Dolphins didn't want him, and that's John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley, and so there's some overlap there, so, whatever. Well, first of all, I mean, Hafley's a defensive guy, so there's a different offensive system. Maybe it doesn't fit as well. Secondly, again, John Eric Sullivan isn't necessarily doing it from the same place that the Packers would be doing it. They're trying to get under the cap, so they have a different cap situation, and they also have to pay him probably more than whoever is going to sign him, if anybody would sign him. Now, this is beyond a long shot here, but I thought I'd at least bring it up because it's out there. It's also worth noting that if you brought him in, it also could be seen as a special teams play. Not that he grades out spectacularly well, really in anything anymore, but that's something else to keep in mind as far as who would bring him in. Even if you're not necessarily a fullback team, he's definitely got a lot of special teams experience. Another guy that was just released is Alex Kappa. Again, pretty unlikely. He's 31 years old that the Packers would go in this direction. He has almost exclusively been a right guard, but he did play primarily center this past year. Again, very unlikely this is the direction you go, but depending on who ends up staying, who ends up going, could you see him as maybe a backup? Maybe. I would doubt it. Again, the 31 years old, especially like most of these guys, has been declining for the last 2 to 3 years. It's not a great thing to do, But, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the Packers are doing. We got to see kind of what direction, who stays, who goes. If everybody stays, then obviously we don't need to worry about it. If everybody goes, it becomes a little bit more of an interesting question. Then we got Andy Dalton. ESPN's David Newton reports the Panthers plan to move on from Andy Dalton. News adds, even if it means releasing Dalton and leaving $3.83 million in dead cap money. Things really crashed down hard from the Andy Dalton Combine getting calls experience. Dalton, who turns 39 in October, likely proved that he just wasn't a good enough backup last year in his start against the Bills to keep paying a premium on. It wouldn't be surprising if the Panthers cut him. The funny thing about it is this kind of used to be more of the conversation Packer fans had when we talked about a backup quarterback, when we needed somebody. It's, let's go out and get the Andy Dalton types. Now, maybe not specifically Dalton, who's pushing 40 at this point. But I don't know where Packer fans are at. Are we trying to draft the next Malik? Are we trying to find the next Malik? And I don't necessarily mean athleticism. I just mean, are we trying to draft somebody that we can mold? Are we trying to maybe find that diamond in the rough out there that we can mold? Or do we want to consider just the veteran guy that can maybe, keep things alive, a smart quarterback that can run a relatively quarterback-friendly system like Matt LaFleur's? Because these guys are also out there, and you're going to pay a little bit of a premium above and beyond just the typical backups that are just bad at football that we usually trot out there. But are you willing to do that? Now, again, Dalton in particular, I don't know if there's even much of a premium anymore, but I don't know. It would be kind of funny if it was one of those things where Packer fans have been begging for it forever, and then when Packer fans finally stop begging for it because they found a new formula that they like better, Packers are like, you know what we should do? We should go get Dalton. And then the final one that might have, it's still a long shot, but you could argue it has the most teeth to it. The Cardinals have released defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson. Now, Tomlinson's 32 years old. I don't think Gutekunst is going to be a big fan of that. The only reason I say it might have some teeth to it is the fact that he was just with the Cardinals. Meaning our defensive coordinator, as early as last year, made the decision to go get him. Decided he was the guy that we wanted for the defense that he runs. Now, it was an appalling disaster, and his run defense has been declining since his rookie year. It is literally since 2017, 83, 80, 79, 70, 68, 65, 49, slight resurgence to 64, and then 37 this past year. I think next year he's going to start pulling running backs toward the goal line at this rate. His tackling grades also are like identical. If we just round it, it's like 70-70, 50-50, 50, 40, 30, 20, 20. And his pass rush has never really been very good. He's never had more than 4 sacks in a season. So maybe it's more of a, what would you call it, a template of the type of player that we might be looking for, rather than, fingers crossed, hopefully not somebody we actually are targeting. All right, let's take our final break, and then we'll look at some of this NFC North news. We'll be right back. All right, starting off with the Minnesota Vikings here. First of all, they did a simple restructure on Justin Jefferson's contract. I'll say this about the Lions, too. There's been kind of a foregone conclusion of they have these sort of elite players. They have these elite players. Well, at least they have these elite players. Every year that ticks by and nothing really happens, these guys are aging. Aiden Hutchinson was the guy I was trying to think of. Same thing there. Every year of maybe next year we'll put somebody across from him. Maybe next year we'll put somebody across from him. You're not going to have them forever. Now, Jefferson's not old, but he's going to be 27 this year. And he's been declining since 2023. He hasn't had his first 4 years he graded in the 90s. He hasn't graded in the 90s since. So maybe that was just the quarterback situation, although 2024 doesn't make a lot of sense because 2024 was the year that they had Sam Darnold. But he still dropped to an 88 grade. Still very high, but when you point to a decline from 88 down to 80, He's not even, I don't think, in the top 10 of wide receivers this past year. Not saying he's not good. I'm just saying that the league starts to pass you by, and there are new superstars every single year. And it's hard to kind of maintain that spot at the top. And, there's a big difference between we have the number one receiver in all of football, so at least we got something going, and we got that guy who's like the 12th best receiver in football. Oh, wow. Again, Aiden Hutchinson, still young. He's still only going to be 26 this year. But it's been 4 years. He's already suffered a really bad injury in 2024, which is, as we've talked about, probably going to shorten his lifespan as a pass rusher. So 26 is young, but it's been 4 years. You have maybe 4 years left, and things are going in the wrong direction. At what point do we start to put somebody on the opposite side and start to put some other people in here? By the way, when are you going to get corners to give them some time? When are you going to do these things? Because remember a couple of years ago, I said you were at the easy part, and eventually it gets harder as guys start leaving, guys start retiring, all these things start happening, and it gets hard to even maintain a replacement level. Where are you guys going right now? It's not looking great. So, again, yeah, good players, but it ain't going to last forever. So what the Vikings ended up doing, he had a $23.775 million base salary. They converted some of that into a signing bonus and spread that out over 26, 27, 28, and his void year, which is in 2029. And I think that frees up like $18 million for them. So that would put him at what? Like $5-6 million base salary now? Maybe it's less than that. It doesn't matter. But, his cap hit is going to spike again. I think, let me just look at this and make sure this is right here. Yeah, so Over the Cap has his base salary reduced basically down to the minimum, $1.215 million. But he already had a signing bonus. And so this restructure gets added on top of that. And so now going forward, it's $13.5 million this year, next year, and in 2028, just in the signing bonus. So even though his base salary is $1.2 million, he's got a $13.4 million signing bonus, $6 million option, some other things in here. And so his cap hit is still $21 million. Next year in 2027, he has a base salary of $29 million. You add everything up, it goes up to $49 million. What are you going to do with that? They can't cut him. This is an insane contract. So next year in 2027, his base salary is $29 million. The cap hit is $49.4 million. If they were to cut him, it would be $51 million in dead cap. They actually lose money by cutting him. And of course, they're not going to do that anyway. So what are you going to do? I mean, if you continue to push money out, it's just going to get so much worse. So the only thing I can think you can do is give him an extension, but there's still so much money on here. And I believe what would happen if you offered him an extension, let's say in 2027, the $13.4 million, so the current signing bonuses stay exactly as it is, exactly in those years. So in 2027, even if you backloaded the contract so that you end up with lower salaries, it's in the same situation. Say you pay him a $5 million cap hit this year, it ends up being 13.4 plus the 5. So you're looking at, 18 million, whatever. So then just as you get out of this signing bonus, because you got 13.4 in 2027, 13.4 in 2028, and $6 million in 2029, you're going to have a ballooning contract again, which I guess is fine because at that point you're probably looking to get out of the contract. The only question is, did you set this up smart enough that you can get out of it? Because the complicated part about this, and maybe I'm getting too in-depth, but I find it interesting, the complicated part is if you give him a new contract next year, he's of course going to expect guaranteed money, a lot of it. The last time he had almost $89 million in fully guaranteed money. Okay, so the goal is the contract starts in 2027, and by 2029, we need to be able to get out of this, if need be, because he'll be 30 years old. How do you do that? Because you can only pay down the guaranteed money with actually money paid to him. Well, there's the signing bonus, but that signing bonus is just going to get added to all of this. So if it's, I don't know, if it's 5 years and a $20 million signing bonus, I'm making up numbers, that's an additional $4 million you have to place on top of the 13.4. So now it's $17 million over the next 2 years, plus your base salary, plus everything else. Oh, and there's a $6 million option bonus. So it's actually $18 million. Oh, my Lord. So $18 million this year, 2027 and 2028, plus $12 million in 2029. So anyways, getting back to what I'm saying, so that's $20 million. So you still owe him another, I don't know, $50, $60, $70 million you have to pay down. How are you going to do that if you keep his base salary low because you have these bonuses that are so high? If his salary is just $5 million a year or $10 million a year, okay, you just paid off $20 million in 2 years, $30 million in 3 years, plus a $20 million signing bonus is $50 million. I guess if you only gave him 70, then you're looking at eating $20 million on the cap, plus all this other crap that's left over. I don't know. I think this is going to be, it's going to be probably relatively painful. But anywho, there's that. In addition for the Vikings, and I think I've mentioned this several times that I thought it was done, but it must have just been speculation. Officially, center Ryan Kelly has retired from the NFL after 10 seasons. This is 2 centers in the NFC North that have retired within a couple days of each other. Obviously, the entire NFC North, especially Vikings, Packers, Lions, are in a bit of a pinch here with offensive line. Bears are already going in the wrong direction with it. This does not help the situation. They have Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, who's solid. Brian O'Neill, who's solid, but getting old. It's not looking great beyond that. Blake Brendel is now their starting center again. I mean, back to that's as good as it gets. That's basically what they were looking at, I think, last year before they brought in Ryan Kelly. So it is a pretty bleak situation. And it's also something that needs to be remembered every time we talk about, oh, they just need a quarterback. They just need a quarterback. Bro, they don't have a running back. Their tight end is massively overrated. Hawkinson hasn't really been that good, probably since he was in Detroit. Maybe a little decent in Minnesota for a little while. But Detroit definitely won that. They were right to move on, especially considering they went and got somebody a lot better. Their interior offensive line is a joke. I mean, if you're going to find somebody, he better be able to handle pressure. Because it's coming. Or at the very least, has an innate ability to close his eyes and launch it up to Justin Jefferson. One of those two things definitely needs to be on the list of the most important things. Now, just like in Chicago, we have to worry about Minnesota possibly sniping some good centers from us, but such is life. It's the way it goes. We still got to go out there. We still got to find that guy, and the Vikings took a big step back. But speaking of that quarterback situation, all of a sudden, at least in the last 24 hours, and maybe this is like Malik going to Miami where it's like a guarantee until it becomes not a guarantee, and then suddenly it's not even the most likely scenario. But all of a sudden, Kyler Murray is basically a lock to go to Minnesota. I don't exactly know where that all came from, but I keep seeing people talk about it as though it's just a done deal. But the biggest news item that comes out here is SNY's Connor Hughes reports there is a resounding belief that Kyler Murray wants to sign with the Vikings. While there's been some speculation that Murray and the Jets could join forces this offseason, the soon-to-be free agent, unsurprisingly, may prefer to go to a team that hasn't been in rebuild mode for the last decade plus. Things will likely move quickly for Murray once he officially hits the open market, but we now have multiple reports, linking the former number 1 overall pick to the Vikings if there is mutual interest on both sides. Murray would have ample weapons to work with in Minnesota, and quarterback whisperer Kevin O'Connell, so he's called, would have yet another reclamation project who he hopes can elevate the Vikings in what has become a highly competitive NFC North. Now, like I mentioned before, the big benefit with Kyler Murray is that you can basically sign him to a league minimum because his contract, his salary is going to be paid almost entirely, or I think entirely, by the Arizona Cardinals. Another brilliant decision by a brilliant organization. So there's probably going to be quite a bit of competition to go get him. That being said, I'm guessing he would want some kind of a longer-term deal. In other words, a 1-year deal where you pay a minimum is nice. Do I hear $2 million? Can I hear a second year? Anybody? betting markets now, like Kalshi, have the Vikings at an implied probability of 70% to get Kyler Murray. Let me check if that's updated, but that is a big freaking number. Yeah, and it's actually been skyrocketing. So as early as February 26th, he was at 20%. It kind of went up and then came back down. It was at 24.5% March 3rd. So we're talking 3 days ago from where I'm sitting. It is skyrocketed to 70.3%. So yeah, it's moving fast and furious. I'm guessing when this kind of money is moving like this, there's some pretty good information out there. Because if we're flipping a coin, I mean, this is pretty good money to go the other direction. Can more than triple your money just by saying, no, he's not going to Minnesota. Meaning literally anywhere else, including retirement, baseball, whatever. He doesn't go to Minnesota, you triple your money? Somebody's got to know something. Then we had further confirmation here from Tom Pelissero. Evan Sidery posted, there is mutual interest between the Vikings and Kyler Murray per Tom Pelissero. All signs point to Murray signing with the Minnesota Vikings to become their new starting quarterback when free agency opens. So remember, the initial report that I read was Kyler really wants to go to Minnesota. We don't know if it goes both ways. Now Tom Pelissero is saying, yes, it definitely goes both ways. And then finally, we've got this here from Sports Illustrated. Joe Nelson wrote an article, with immense support from Vikings, dots connect Kyler Murray to Minnesota. When you connect the dots in the Kyler Murray rumor mill, most of them lead to Minnesota. The latest dot linking soon-to-be free agent Vikings comes from beat reporter Alec Lewis, who says there is immense internal support for Murray within the walls at TCO Performance Center in Eagan. So, Packer fans, get prepared for Kyler Murray. As I said, and maybe I'm overconfident in this thing, but I just don't think we've ever really struggled all that much. Not to say he's bad. I know. I remember how much people panicked about his legs and everything else, and I was like, guys, I mean, it's just friggin' chill. It is what it is. He also has had severe injury issues and things that have kept him out. I mean, he played one full season in 2024. Prior to that, I mean, I don't know, 2021. In his defense, I mean, he's pretty good when he's healthy, but he's never healthy. I'll also be interested to see if the Vikings put any kind of thing in his contract about please don't play Call of Duty till 4 a.m. Thank you very much. Anywho, let's rapid fire a couple of these here. The Bears apparently are planning to keep Kevin Byard, but move on from Brisker. It's nothing official here, but that's apparently what's being said. And I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised because Brisker is not a super great football player. And if you're trying to move some money, that would maybe be the way to do it. I mean, he's not terrible. In fact, I mean, his coverage is terrible. His run defense was actually quite good, like an 80 grade and an 83 tackling grade. And he is, what? He's 26.8 years old. We'll see if they do it, but that would be surprising. And then on top of that, they're apparently keeping Kevin Byard, who's going to be 33. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, I know people make fun of the Packers because, they're so obsessed with their age and everybody has to be young and all this stuff. Do you understand how stupid this is? Do you understand how quickly people get old and become kind of useless? Byard's a good player, no doubt about it. 83 run defense, 72 coverage. Like, he's just good. Good tackling grade. The only thing he wasn't great at is pass rush, and he almost never did that, so who cares? I don't see how we take a young, talented run-defending safety at least and say he's got to go because I don't want to pay him, but let's keep the 33-year-old. You know what that means next year? We don't have any safeties. We'll see if that materializes, but that's just freaking weird to me. In addition, they released Tremaine Edmonds. It's another move that was kind of expected, but also makes me chuckle because it just never was as good as they were hoping it was going to be. They paid him way too much money. With that being said, last year was kind of his actual resurgence. He had one good year in Buffalo. I said he's going to be bad, and he was. He had a 56 grade, 57 run defense. The next year, 59 grade, 62 run defense. Like, it never really worked out. The coverage was terrible. He wasn't good. Then in 2025, he has a 66 grade with an 81 run defense grade. Oh, shoot. Oh, boy, here he comes. Never mind, they cut him. Okay, cool. So he's also 27.8 years old, so he's got some tread on his tires yet. And now he's gone. So as bad as their defense was, this was a pretty legitimate part of whatever run defense they had was what Tremaine Edmonds was doing last year, and they decided they don't want that either. And remember, their safety, Brisker, who theoretically is leaving, is also very, very good run defense. It's a lot of run defense power leaving the defense. But the biggest news for the Chicago Bears came, and I kind of already said it, but the Bears are going to acquire center Garrett Bradbury from the Patriots for a 5th-round pick. This, to me, is hilarious. Bears fans are already, oh, this is a great move. This is great. Bro, I hate using stupid words, but this is cope. This is 100,000. You lost a very good center at 27 years old that was going to anchor your offensive line for the next 5 years. He just left, and now you brought in the guy that I don't think I've ever seen. Well, that's not entirely true. They had another guy that was really awful. I think he played right guard for him, but Vikings fans hated this guy so much. We ripped this guy apart. He was a first-round pick. He's absolutely freaking terrible. Bears fan was arguing with me, so I went and found a couple different articles. I won't read through them all, but I'll just kind of give you the general gist here. Heavy.com wrote something here. It's about PFF, so it's not really relevant how credible Heavy is. Vikings first-rounder blasted as biggest draft mistake in 5 years. The Minnesota Vikings overcame a drought of poor first-round picks over the past several years by hitting big with rookie sensation Justin Jefferson. Before Jefferson, however, the Vikings' first-round selections had been abysmal. Pro Football Focus's Michael Renner recently named all 32 teams' biggest draft mistakes over the past 5 years. He had a bevy of blunders to choose from, as no Minnesota first-rounder before Jefferson had made the Pro Bowl in their career since Teddy Bridgewater. While the Vikings have moved on from some of their past mistakes like Trey Waynes, Laquan Treadwell, their biggest mistake, according to Renner, is still rostered. Here is his assessment of Bradbury. The Vikings' selection of Bradbury has layers of mistakes packed into it. It torpedoed the career of Pat Elflein, whom they drafted the year prior and was far more suited for the center position. He also is more than likely going to continue to put them in that no man's land for years to come. That's because he's good enough in the run game to not be replaced, but a liability in pass protection. He has earned pass protection grades of 41.4 and 38.8 in his first 2 seasons. The icing on the cake is that the next 2 centers drafted were Elton Jenkins and Eric McCoy. See, by the way, how that works both ways? Just throwing that out there. So the Bears just picked up a guy that 2 years ago the Vikings were throwing parades because they finally got rid of this freaking guy. Raiders are trading star edge rusher Max Crosby to the Ravens. Let's go. Apparently, the Raiders are trading him for the Ravens pick number 14 and additional compensation. Dang. Getting some firepower, man. I like it. I'm excited. So there's that. Then there's one other article here. This is March 17th, 2025 by Adam Patrick over at thevikingage.com. He says, Minnesota finally does something Vikings fans have been begging for. Guess what that thing is? Do I need to read the article? I don't think so. They got rid of their starting center that was a first-round pick. And it was characterized as, finally, Vikings fans have been begging for this. You know why? Because they have been. Because he's bad. And then he spent 1 year with the Patriots before the Patriots sent him off. And Bears fans are sitting there go, well, Patriots fans actually say he's pretty good. Okay. In fact, bragging about, well, I mean, he's not a good run blocker, but he's a pretty good pass blocker. No. Maybe a little bit last year, but you understand this is an unbelievable drop-off from what you had. Oh, it looks like it is 2 first-round picks. Jeez. I'm almost sad the Bears didn't get Max Crosby. That is too much. I mean, I don't freaking care. I mean, I'm actually kind of happy because even though they're both AFC teams, I mean, the Ravens are a good team, and so I'd rather them kind of get hurt by this. 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby, dude. That's crazy. So anywho, they ended up giving up a 5th-round pick for Garrett Bradbury, which makes it even worse, to be honest. I mean, if they just picked him up off the street and paid him, that would be embarrassing and a big downgrade. They actually gave up draft compensation. And again, I think it's too much. And I'm being honest. If I would have said it, I said yesterday they made a good deal. They got a great 2nd-round pick for the guy, whatever. That was great. 5th-round pick for this guy is not a good. It's not a good move. And by the way, I don't want to hear, well, it's a 2027. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I'm so sick of hearing about that. It doesn't matter. The value is a 5th-round pick. If you don't believe me, ask me again, or let me ask you again in 365 days. Do you know how stupid this conversation is about the fact that the value is less in future years? And I'm not saying that teams don't value it as less. I don't care what teams do because teams are idiots. I'm telling you the actual value you paid, as I've said 1,000 times. If we had 2 first-round picks this year, let's just say, we had a first and somebody, or a second, whatever. We had a second-round pick for the sake of less confusion. What would you say if Bears fans came to you and tried to talk trash because, well, that 2nd-round pick was actually given to you not last year but 2 years ago? Okay. So it's actually less than the value of a 2nd-round pick. What are you talking about? It's a 2nd-round pick. This is the most idiotic, brain-dead opinion I've ever heard in my life. It's like, your grandma hands you an envelope on Thanksgiving, and it says, there's your Christmas card, but don't open it until Christmas. There's $100 inside. Is it less than $100 on Thanksgiving? Oh, I can't open it until Christmas? Well, it's worth less now. No, it's not. You just have to wait for it. It's the same. $100 is $100. It's $100 on Thanksgiving, and guess what's going to be in the card on Christmas? It's going to be $100. Ugh. So they gave up a 5th for him. Yeah, and then pretty big breaking news. What is this now? Oh, Easton Butler dropping his text conversations. Looks like it was from earlier today. Somebody told him Cowboys, Ravens, and Eagles were the highest bidders right now for Max Crosby, which is funny because that's pretty legit considering what we heard is that it's actually Cowboys, Bears, and I didn't hear anybody talking about Ravens and Eagles. Maybe Eagles a long time ago. I haven't heard anybody talk about the Ravens. I think, I'm going to keep adding to this list of what the heck I'm ever going to do if I become super rich from the lottery. I'm just going to be an insider. I'm going to pay people money to just tell me stuff. I'm going to get a private plane. I'm going to fly around. I'm going to put people on my plane. We're going to go get steaks together. We're going to be best buddies. I'm just going to be best friends with all the people that are in the know. I'm going to send them really nice Christmas presents. I'm going to go out and meet them, take them out for nice dinners and send them on vacations. They're going to live the high life. And all they got to do is text me all the information before everybody else has it. And I'm just going to kick back and go, look what I just figured out. Spending a couple $1 million a year just pumping up people so that I get a text message 8 minutes before everybody else does. Sniff on that one. Had to settle on sniff. I wasn't sure where to go with that. Okay, I'm out of here. Y'all have a good rest of your day. Hopefully, maybe tomorrow we'll have information on Rashawn Gary. Or, as I said, what did I say? Monday. Look out for Monday. We'll see. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.